What is up, guys? It's me, the ALE Double X Prince, not doing the hat for a while because it is hot in California. But I am here to give you part 7 of rebooking NXT in 2020. So, what is going to happen now? Well, um, so we're going to focus on two women who have been both one of the highlights and lowlights of NXT. That is Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Why do I say the highlights and the lowlights? Because people were actually very excited for these two duos. They were basically an iteration of Shawn Michaels and Diesel, and one of them got pushed to the moon even though she wasn't ready, and then one is essentially the more over superstar because they got better promo skills, better wrestling ability. But deep down, I actually do believe that these girls are equally impactful to the NXT division right now, honestly. If anything, NXT TakeOver 36, this is the match I'm excited for the most. That's the only one with a decent story or a good story to say the least. The only problem is that they're making Raquel the face and Dakota the heel. That is the stupidest thing you could have done. But let's talk about this. Let me tell you what I would do differently with Raquel and Dakota Kai. For starters, they are a dominant force to be reckoned with. No one can beat them at NXT TakeOver in your house. We're gonna skip right to everything, but at NXT TakeOver in your house is gonna be Candice LeRae, Dakota Kai, and Raquel Gonzalez versus Mia Yim, Tegan Knox, and Shotzi Blackheart. Just like in real life, the only thing I would change is that up to this point, Raquel Gonzalez has yet to have a match ever in NXT or just ever in period. So this is gonna be Raquel's first ever performance. They focus a lot on Lorraine Yim, Dakota Kai having some movement with Shotzi and Knox. But eventually, once they pin Raquel Gonzalez, she's going to tear um Shotzi and Tegan. Mia Yim and Candice LeRae run away like in the real match, but Raquel Gonzalez gets the pin victory. Now, the way I'm going to book Raquel Gonzalez is similar to Amos right now, AJ Styles and Amos. Basically, if you book them like that, they would be so much better. Um, and basically, they go on a tag team spree, and eventually, Dakota Kai's great promo abilities lead her to a chance at the NXT Women's Championship. So at NXT TakeOver 30, it'll be Io Shirai versus Dakota Kai for the NXT Women's Championship. Just like in the Io Shirai rebooking, I mentioned that Rhea Ripley will defeat Mercedes Martinez in the opening match, and then she'll come out to help Io Shirai even the outs, because if she's going to face the NXT Women's Champion, she wants the best of her. And Raquel Gonzalez is not that person, and she just wants to be NXT champion once again. Anyways, moving on. NXT moves to Tuesdays. The last takeover, or I should say, the last ever NXT on a Wednesday will be the NXT after NXT Takeover 30, and now that NXT moves to Tuesday, the very first match of the first ever NXT in Tuesdays, it's going to be Io Shirai and Rhea Ripley versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. And this is going to be the first time Raquel Gonzalez ever gets pinned. She gets pinned by Rhea Ripley, but it's in a tag team match. So you're saying to yourself, oh, maybe Dakota's holding her down. And the reason why Dakota's not in the match as much is because she has to fake an injury that really happened. Now, I don't know if she got injured in real life, but let's just say she does. And the purpose of this is to have Raquel finally go on her own, having squash matches throughout the rest of the year. And then eventually Dakota Kai returns to the ring, and then she shows off that she could do things on her own. They never split up, but they realized that they could do some stuff on their own. But imagine the pain that they could do once they're back together. So Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, they come form. They're always on each other's corner, and their matches they're on each other's corner. But now they're officially ready to have tag team action. So following NXT Takeover the New Year. Following NXT Takeover the New Year, we are going to have the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic, only this time just women. We're not doing a men's and a women's Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. We should have one for the women because it's different and it doesn't devalue the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic anyway. So this is going to be a perfect way of doing something different. And pretty much, you guessed it, the winner of this tournament will get a shot at the Women's Tag Team Championships. And you probably guessed it, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez win the women or the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. They go on a clean spree against all the tag teams in the women's division. But let's rebook the women's tag team division and the main roster first. Now, we'll start at Evolution, or not Evolution, Payback, I should say. Sorry, why did I say Evolution? But Payback, where Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax win the women's tag team championships from Bayley and Sasha. They go on a rare tear, and then eventually Asuka needs a partner to face Shayna and Nia, and it's going to be Rhea Ripley, who has already been on the main roster for a while. So Rhea and Asuka are already announced to face Shayna and Nia for the tag team championships at TLC. They win them. They later defend them at the Royal Rumble, and they defend them against the Iconics. The Iconics get the upset victory. Peyton Royce upsetly pins Asuka, leading to free TV match for the Raw Women's Championship down the road. But then the Iconics need to defend their tag team championships against Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair at the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view. And then Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair will win those tag team championships, and then they'll go on to NXT to defend them against Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Now you're all cut up? Good. That was a lot to take in, but this is important for what's to come. So at NXT, whenever the match is available, we're gonna have Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair versus Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, and Raquel Gonzalez pins Sasha Banks, big upset victory. And now Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez are your new women's tag team champions. We're never going to do the NXT women's tag team championships. Those were stupid. We'll just stick to one tag team titles because it's gonna be overkill. So the women's tag team championships, and then Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez really liked the accomplishments they did, and they want to take it a step further. So at Fastlane, we're gonna do a rematch. Dakota and Raquel defend the women's tag team championships against Bianca Belair and Sasha Banks, and this time we switch the roles. Dakota Kai pins Bianca Belair, and then after the match, Sasha Banks is like really mad that Bianca Belair couldn't, like, because they're in a bitter rivalry. We already announced that these two would face at WrestleMania. Like, we don't like sugarcoat it. Bianca Belair, right after she wins the Rumble, she says, "I'm in SmackDown. I'm gonna stay in SmackDown, and I want to beat the best because I am the EST." And it's Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. It's announced for, like, since it's honestly the very first match announced for WrestleMania. But they have this bitter friendly rivalry throughout, and now this is the night where Sasha Banks finally turns heel on Bianca Belair. So Sasha Banks just chokes out Bianca Belair, and she stands tall as your SmackDown Women's Championship. So at WrestleMania, we're gonna have 4 women's matches, 2 on one show and 2 on another show. So night 1, we'll have Shayna Baszler and Nia Jax have a regular like 2-minute match just to culminate their feud. So where Shayna Baszler wins, and she gets a big victory from Nia Jax. I think Shayna Baszler could definitely use a victory by squashing someone like Nia Jax. That would be awesome. And then the main event of night 1 of WrestleMania 37 will be Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Bianca Belair wins, keeps that the same. That was a great match, but with a better story. Now you're more invested. Night 2 of WrestleMania 37, Rhea Ripley versus Asuka. The story makes more sense because Rhea Ripley has been in the main roster, and they have this bitter friendly rivalry similar to Banks and Belair, but Rhea Ripley wins the tournament to become the number 1 contender. So It's more of like, okay, I know what Asuka's capable of, and Asuka knows what's Rhea Ripley capable of. So it's like, oh shit, who's gonna win? So now you're more excited for this match. And then after Rhea Ripley wins, then she could feud with Charlotte when she returns following WrestleMania 37. I think we need a Charlotte break, anyways. And then for the at WrestleMania, another match that I decided to add is Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez, your women's tag team champions. They want to defend them at WrestleMania. They want a challenge. And because Bayley and Carmella, who have been kind of carrying the division, they want a match at WrestleMania. And Adam Pearce like, yeah, you know what? Both of you did such a great job carrying WWE during the pandemic. So unfortunately, I don't have space for both of you at WrestleMania, so I decided to put you together. And part of the reason why we want to do this is because we want the women's tag team championships back on SmackDown. And Dakota and Raquel laugh that they think that this is gonna work. So at WrestleMania, Dakota and Raquel versus Bayley and Carmella. It should be a good match. Raquel Gonzalez pins Carmella, and then after the match, Bayley this beats up Carmella, and then she goes on to feud with Bianca Belair. Now, the NXT after WrestleMania, we're going to do the stand-up. So you guys may have remembered this iconic moment where Raquel Gonzalez was your NXT Women's Champion, Rhea Ripley was your Raw Women's Champion, and Bianca Belair was your SmackDown Women's Champion, and then all three hold the belts. Why don't we change it up? We have Raquel Gonzalez and Dakota Kai as your Women's Tag Team Champions, Rhea Ripley as your Raw Women's Champion, and Bianca Belair as your SmackDown Women's Champion. And then all four of them hold the belt, showing us that we have four new horsewomen. Because at this point, the four horsewomen have done it all. They've made event at WrestleMania. They've made event at countless pay-per-views. They've stole the show. It's time for the four horsewomen to just kind of like the original four horsewomen to like kind of like go out of the shadow and show us a new generation of four horsewomen, four new women that are going to carry um, the women's division following the new decade. Because it's great to show new characters. Because honestly, what's there left for the original horsewomen to do? Bayley is kind of good as a character driven base. Like she could just do Ding Dong Hello if she really wanted to. She could have matches from here and there, but she shouldn't be the main focus. She's just her job now should be putting people over. Becky Lynch is having a baby. I wouldn't be shocked if eventually she wants to have another baby. So Becky Lynch could honestly just call it quits and be done with it. Charlotte, she's main evented at WrestleMania. She's done it all. And more than likely she's gonna end up in AEW because Andrade and Ric Flair are there already. So what are the chances of Charlotte Flair? And plus, they're misbooking her, and I'm pretty sure Charlotte is tired of it. So I'm pretty sure down the road, Charlotte might want to end up leaving. And then Sasha Banks, she's in The Mandalorian. She's probably going to get hired for more movies. So Sasha Banks is good. So really, we need new women, and these four should be the main focus of it. Now that I got that out of the way, let's talk about what's next for Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez. Io Shirai has gone almost an entire year, beating the likes of Dakota Kai, Candice LeRae, Tony Storm, Ember Moon. You could watch the entire booking of Io Shirai in my Io Shirai rebooking, of course. And it's time for a new challenger, and then Raquel Gonzalez wants Io Shirai at NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver, again replacing In Your House 2. So, NXT TakeOver Stand and Deliver, which is going to be one night, never make NXT TakeOver 2 nights. That's just stupid. It makes no sense. It makes sense for WrestleMania because they got bigger stars. TakeOver, the point is to see who is going to make it in the card. That's what made it so special. But anyways, Io and Raquel win, or they have a match, and Raquel Gonzalez is your new NXT Women's Champion. Plus, they're still the Women's Tag Team Champions, Dakota and Raquel. So they are on a big tear, and they're showing that they are going to dominate the women's division, but they're still in NXT. Now, around this time, I decided to do a mini story where Shotzi Blackheart wants to team up with Tony Storm. Think of Kane and X-Pac from 1999 to 2000. Think of that storyline and then put it with these two women. Or you could even do similar to Rated RK Bro right now with Matt Riddle and Randy Orton. So do that. And then I think Shotzi and Tony Storm would make a way much better tag team than Shotzi and Tegan, because Tegan Knox is generic as fuck, and Tony Storm and Shotzi Blackheart are more charismatic and more fun. So we constantly build these two women up, and eventually we'll have a match. I don't know when, but uh, Dakota Kai and Raquel Gonzalez lose their tag team championships to Shotzi Blackheart and Tony Storm, and then they move on to SmackDown. Because Dakota Kai got pinned in that match, Raquel Gonzalez says that she's tired of it. She just body slams Dakota Kai, body slams her, just taking her out for what seems like forever. And then Dakota Kai talks about how she has been held down by Dakota Kai and that she is going to be known as the greatest NXT Women's Champion. And then we have a new challenger, Ember Moon. She's there. And Ember Moon's job really is just to put over the new women of NXT. So at NXT TakeOver Las Vegas, or NXT TakeOver 35 Las Vegas, we're going to do Raquel Gonzalez versus Ember Moon. It's just your typical match, just a filler match, so we could lead to Raquel and Ember Moon. And part of the reason why I want to do this is because I think Raquel Gonzalez needs some more credible competitors before she eventually drops it to Dakota Kai, who returns after this match. She comes out with a candlestick, just smacks the shit out of Raquel with it, just beating the crap out of her. And then throughout the fall, we'll just book Dakota Kai versus Raquel Gonzalez throughout the remainder of the year, where eventually Dakota Kai wins the NXT Women's Championship. Raquel Gonzalez goes on to the main roster. Dakota Kai stays in NXT for a bit as your NXT Women's Champion, and then eventually she'll drop it to the character that finally needs to turn heel, Ember Moon. Ember Moon turns heel and then takes the belt off of uh, Dakota Kai, and then Dakota Kai moves on to the main roster just as well. And this is the culmination, and this is honestly one of my favorite ones out of this entire series, because I'm building people for the main roster and people for NXT, because I think the reason why people hate Raquel Gonzalez is because when they did that iconic pose with her, Rhea, and Bianca, Dakota Kai was missing. It was just like, oh, they're just like forgetting about Dakota Kai, who's been there longer. So that was very disappointing. So if this way you show that Dakota Kai is gonna be one that you're gonna push, then now people are invested with Raquel Gonzalez. So here are gonna be your new four horsewomen: Rhea Ripley, the leader; Bianca Belair, um, Raquel Gonzalez, and Dakota Kai. Those are your new four horsemen. And now in 2022, they'll be carrying the division. I think that is the best thing you can do with them. And this is why I wanted to book Raquel and Dakota Kai. Now, on to the final part. I don't know when I'm going to do part 8, but this is going to be the second to last one. This video is the second to last one of rebooking NXT in 2020. But here is what I got. Kevin Owens is going to be the final part. And I got a lot to say about what we do with Kevin Owens, so stay tuned when I do that video eventually. It's me, the ALE XX Prince. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, and until then, I'm out.